water.
Scottie B going to work in the paint.
Eastern Conference Final. New NBA champion. And it's a team from Toronto, Canada. We the North are now we the champions.
What is going on, Raptors Nation? It is Luca here, back with the Raptors Nation podcast. Hope you're all doing well. I am joined by Raptors Nation staff writer Matthew Valento. Joining me on today's pod as we talk about just a miserable season opener for the Toronto Raptors. It was not pretty at all. Raptors lose by 30 in their first game of their 30th anniversary. So Matt and I, we're going to talk about some big talking points following the loss. And then we're going to look ahead a little bit to see if the Raptors can bounce back here. Before we dive right into it, do me a solid, everybody. Drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for more pods and vids just like this. And also, wherever you find your podcast, Apple, iTunes, or Spotify, be sure to leave us a 5-star review. Matt, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Not too bad. It's been a minute. Thank you for having me on today.
Yeah, so it wasn't a good opener. It was a good opener for your Lakers, but not for my Raptors, as the Raptors, they had a lot of optimism coming to the season, clean slate, young team, rebuild, and they certainly played like it in the first quarter. It definitely looked like the energy was high. They came out, the effort was there. They got off to a good start, rocking those beautiful purple jerseys. But then, Matt, things just completely turned on a dime. Cavs go on that 19-5 run leading into the second quarter. Things go from bad to worse with Emmanuel quickly awkwardly falling. Now he's going to be, questionable moving forward. He is not going to, in all likelihood, not going to play against the Sixers tomorrow. So you look at this Raptors team, a lot of people, the biggest takeaway, other than the quickly stuff, was Scottie Barnes. This is a year where he's coming in. He's expected to be a top performer. He's the leader. Raptors committed a lot of money to him, and very underwhelming season opener for Barnes. He struggled mightily. A lot of people voicing their concern, but Matt, how do you view Scottie Barnes' opening performance here? And are you concerned at all about Scottie Barnes going forward?
Particularly no. This is his first game since March, so I'm kind of giving him some slack there. And then he's also down Emmanuel quickly, who only played 14 minutes, and obviously RJ's sidelined for the time being. So I think the Cavs kind of just loaded up in the paint, and Scottie Barnes likes skating downhill, so he kind of struggled getting to his spots down low with Mobley and Jared Allen down there. So it was kind of tough for him to kind of open up the floor with some key options out for them. So overall, not too worried. Obviously, you would like to see 3 or 14 regardless. You would like to see some better shooting regardless of who's out there on the floor. But given how this is his first action in a very long time, I'm going to give him some slack, kind of get used to that number one role again. So hopefully better days are ahead for sure.
Yeah, and I brought up this point too on X. I know technically he played in the preseason, but first real game back since March 1st. And obviously the competitiveness is going to be at a much higher level than the preseason. Gonna have to get back into game speed, going up against stiff competition. It wasn't just any team. The Cavaliers are a really good team, good defensive team, and they got a lot of size in the middle. They pulverized the Raptors' points in the paint. So I agree with that. The thing with Scottie, I would say, Matt, I'm not concerned that I don't think he can turn it around and put in a good performance against Philadelphia. I think he will. What I was most concerned about is just the way he conducted himself. Like, as this team's leader, even if you're not having the best of games, you want to still be a positive reinforcement out there. You want to lead by example. You want to conduct yourself in a certain way. You don't want to pout and just look flustered. And I felt with Scottie, number one, he just didn't have any sort of energy out of the gate. And I thought he was going to come out guns a-blazing following the nice preseason. It's the first game of the season, but he really just lacked that intensity. And then when the going got rough, we saw him kind of take his foot off the gas and just come out flat. And there was one sequence in particular. He wanted no part of Evan Mobley. He lost the ball on that possession. So it's just that part that I want to see Scottie get better at and involved with. It's the maturity level. It's how is he going to handle himself in the face of adversity when his team just got punched in the face, when the other team's making a big run. You're this team's best player. I mean, at least that's what the paycheck suggests. So you have to be ready to be at the front of the pack and really get these guys regrouped when things get tough. And in that Cleveland game, it's like they got punched once and that was basically it. Like it was a wrap from the second quarter and on. So with Scottie, I think the production is going to be there, but you just ask yourself, can he mature and be the true leader of this team? And then the other thing too is like, can he be that consensus number one option? Like, are you going to be sold with Scottie Barnes after the season that he can be the team, can be the player that this team can build on and be that number one guy? Are you sold that he can be the number one guy, or do you think this year is going to be telling of
that? When writing articles, I've honestly been kind of pondering that question. I mean, he's still 23 years old, which is crazy. So it's admittedly probably a lot of pressure regardless of the franchise he plays for. They just handed them the keys to the franchise basically halfway through the year. So obviously there's a lot to digest, especially for Barnes as he tries to navigate being a leader while also trying to be better as a player himself heading into his fourth season now. So at this point, there's probably not a definitive answer. I think this season, as you kind of alluded to, is going to be pretty telling of that. They obviously forked up a lot of money to Scottie Barnes on that extension. So they made the commitment. Obviously, the front office thinks he's the guy moving forward. It's going to be very interesting to see. Granted, it's one game, but yeah, you mentioned the body language. That's obviously a pretty big thing. If you want to be the face of the franchise, you got to be able to handle these kind of losses with your chin up and be able to navigate those tough waters, because we all know the Raptors are in a rebuild. This thing could not be pretty this year as it was last year. Admittedly, they'll probably pick up a few more wins here and there, but there's probably more losing to go through, and it's going to be challenging for not just Barnes, but everyone involved. So it's going to be telling for sure. I think he's kind of just going to learn as he goes, and hopefully it gets better and he can kind of reflect on this game and kind of flush it down the toilet in a sense. I know it wasn't pretty after the second quarter, so hopefully he's able to pick up bits and pieces of film from this game and be able to work towards a better goal as a leader and as a player as a whole.
Yeah, he had a similar game, I would say. Like this, I chalk it up as one of the worst performances of his career with the Raptors. But there was a similar instance last season, I recall. He had a bit of a tough going against San Antonio. Body language wasn't good. And then that's when Wemby put on a show in Toronto. And then Barnes did respond in a big way. And that's what I'm looking forward to here. Like, how is Scottie Barnes going to respond? You're going to go up against the 76ers with no Embiid, no George. Like, you got to look to be head and shoulders better than the rest, especially, you're going to be without, in all likelihood, IQ. Barrett's probably not going to be ready for this game. So can Scottie truly look like that guy when he should dominate and be the best player on the floor? I know you have Tyrese Maxey on the other end, but Scottie Barnes should look like the best player on the floor, with all due respect to Maxey. I know he's a talented player, but I think that's what we're going to find out this season. Is Scottie, that number one guy? And this season's going to tell a lot, because how is he going to look in his back's up against the wall? And then also, how is he going to look when the pieces do come back? That's what I'm most interested in seeing. How is he going to look playing alongside an RJ, an Emmanuel quickly over the course of a full season? Is he kind of going to get lost in the mix, or is he going to be that engine and really thrive with those guys, even playing alongside a Grady Dick who's starting with his basketball team? So I think it is going to be a lot of ups and downs for sure. But with Scottie, it's like there's going to be a lot of expectations, and the pressure is going to be there, and rightfully so. I mean, the Raptors, they made the trades, they paid him handsomely as they did. Like, they have set up this franchise around Scottie Barnes. So there is going to be criticism if he doesn't live up to those expectations. And like I said, it couldn't have gone any worse for Barnes to begin this season when this was his first game as the guy. So let's see how he can kind of rebound, and hopefully he shows us something in that Philadelphia game, because if it's a lot more bad, I mean, there's going to be even more chatter, and then that just continues to derail his confidence. And we know with Scottie, he's got an issue with that, where it's like if his confidence isn't at an all-time high, it definitely shows on the court. So yeah, it's going to be put up or shut up time for Scottie Barnes against the Sixers, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I think regardless of, I kind of alluded to it on my first point, I think as a guy, regardless of who's on the floor, you got to be able to get used to a team scouting against you and loading up against you. You're going to be the vocal point of scouting reports and stuff like that. They know you're the number one option. They're going to focus on your tendencies. And for Barnes, that's probably going to be his biggest learning curve, is being able to navigate against schemes and how to work against teams, for example, loading up the paint, forcing him to shoot jumpers. Even though last year he was looking better with his 3-point shooting, they're probably going to force him to shoot more jumpers. So it's going to be interesting to see how he navigates against teams just loading up against him. And again, you're going against a Philly team. Granted, they're down Embiid and Paul George, but Nick Nurse, he got to coach Scottie a little bit, so he's probably going to know some of his key tendencies as well. So it's going to be interesting to see, because there's familiarity there, and it's all about how you respond. And it'll be interesting to see how he does.
Yeah, we know Nick Nurse is one of the best in terms of eliminating the other team's best player. So it is really going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And I think that's a really good point you bring up, Matt, because entering last season, Scottie was this up and coming player. Obviously, he made that leap, but entering that season, Siakam on the roster, main guy, OG Anunoby. So yeah, teams weren't necessarily preparing for Barnes the way that they're now, especially with the Raptors being shorthanded out of the gate. So he got an early test of it against a really good Cleveland defense. There's not going to be too many defenses better than this Cleveland one this season, I think. But for Barnes, it's going to be all about adjusting, adapting, and is he able to learn how to get better and really just compose himself when defenses are crashing in on what he likes to do. We know he's a tremendous playmaker. Defensively, he can play well as any great defender in this league, but is he going to be able to, get his offense going, find his rhythm, get into the flow of things? Because really, he was just flat against Cleveland. And you talk about like Barnes up against Mobley. They're always so synonymous with each other. Like Mobley dominated that matchup.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't even close. And they're kind of in the same breath when you talk about a potential most improved player of the year candidate this season. So yeah, we'll see if Scottie can answer the call in a big way. Matt, I do want to, I guess, cut Barnes a bit of slack, just beyond the whole like first regular season game since March 1st. This Raptors depth, I mean, it's not good. It really isn't pretty. The first Barnes and bench lineup that Darko likes to run included Davion Mitchell, Shed, Boucher, and Bruno Fernando. And thankfully, Boucher turned in a nice performance, because this thing would have even looked worse than it did. But Fernando struggled mightily. Mitchell, that's a guy who you hope can develop a bit of a perimeter, jump shot, so he has defenses at least respect him from there. He went cold from the field. And then Shed was actually a bright spot in this blowout loss. I thought he played really, really well. That's a guy who's always bringing it 110% of his efforts. You love to see it. But that lineup, I mean, that's hard for any top player in the league to excel with. So you look at this depth, I mean, it is going to be a big concern, because it's already tough to win games when you are a rebuilding team and you lack talent. But then you're talking about not having your key pieces in the rotation, starting the season without RJ Barrett, Olynyk, Jacoby Walter, Bruce Brown. You're probably going to miss these pieces for the next couple of games. Hopefully Quickly and Barrett, they are going to come back sooner rather than later. But how tough is it for this team to all of a sudden now have to deal with that, entering a ridiculously difficult part of their schedule to open things up here?
Yeah, I wish there was more words of optimism that I could have, but yeah, you're going into a tough stretch here with Philly, Minnesota, And then you got the reigning champs coming into your home. So, yeah, it's not great, especially to start off with the preseason with all your main contributors basically essentially hurt. I mean, looking at the bench right now, um, you're asking Chris Boucher to kind of be that guy off the bench. Granted, he was good in the preseason, put up some solid numbers, but in a perfect world, you're probably not wanting to lean on Chris Boucher to be your leading scorer coming off the bench. So, yeah, it's tough right now. I mean, granted, you're in a rebuild, but in a perfect world, you would like for um, things to kind of be balanced with all the names you listed to be back and healthy. But yeah, with Scottie Barnes, and he's going to have to navigate through this. Underrated name is probably Grady Dick. He's probably going to have to step up a little bit more. And yeah, admittedly, you probably can't rely on this bench providing you much until things get healthier. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see because you're going to be asking a lot of the starters. And then again, the starters right now, assuming Emmanuel Quickly's out and RJ's out, it's going to be essentially Scottie and Grady Dick as the main two scoring options. Jakob Pertl, he's not going to give you anything outside of the key. Ochai Agbaji took one shot in 25 minutes, so that's not great either. So, yeah, it's dicey right now for sure. I wish I had a more optimistic look at it, but for right now, you're kind of just going to have to thug it out. And admittedly, it's probably not going to get you're on the road these next two games back to back in Minnesota is pretty tough. And then you go home to the reigning champions, as I mentioned. So probably not going to be pretty, but hopefully it's those guys return sooner rather than later. That's essentially my viewpoint on this.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just the reality of things where you already entered this season with a very questionable bench, then you start losing some pieces, and it just doesn't look good. Now you're asking guys who are rookies to show you something, and you know, thankfully, Shed has been a nice bright spot, but you know, Mobile is going to be a work in progress. Chomchi actually saw some minutes. He's an even more of a project than Mobo, so it is going to be tough. And then Battle, who did make this roster. He's got nice size. He shoots the ball well, but he's going to take some time to come along. And then I thought Fernando, there were times where he just looked very unplayable. So you even look at the front court depth of this team, it's non-existent, especially with a big piece in Olynyk out. Like now you're asking Jakob Poeltl to do a lot. And we saw how much he was bullied and just taken advantage of inside. And thankfully, there's no Embiid for the 76ers because it would have been just Embiid would have gone off for like 50 plus points. So you cut, you catch a bit of a break there. But yeah, in terms of the front court depth, overall depth, it's just getting thinner and thinner. And like you said, once things start to stabilize a bit, it will look better. You know, you're going to first round pick Jacoby Walter. He's going to add a nice scoring punch, a much needed scoring punch from off the bench. Bruce Brown, even though he's not going to be a Raptor in all likelihood for, past this trade deadline, he's still going to be a serviceable vet you can play in the first part of the season here. Hopefully he can get back. And then, yeah, Olynyk, veteran, size, guy who can shoot it. So you're talking about key pieces. And then obviously two starters out with Quickly and Barrett. So yeah, that's the difficulty right now. And we don't know how much it's going to snowball. We don't know how long guys are going to be out, but for this team to be as shorthanded as they are, it's not going to be pretty. And really, you go up against Philadelphia. I know they're going to be without their two top stars, but it's still going to be a very tough matchup. We know Philadelphia, they got some other nice pieces. Nick Nurse is one of the best coaches. And you're right, it's going to come down to Scottie Barnes and Grady Dick. They really got to set the tone early and do a good job of scoring the basketball, because that could be another game that maybe gets out of hand if Maxey catches fire quick. And we know he has the tendency of going off against this Raptors team. And one point that you mentioned, yeah, you don't want to be relying on Chris Boucher, who isn't in the long-term plans of this team, to bail you out and have to rely on him to score 18 points from off the bench. So, let's not forget too, he was a did not play coach's decision on opening night last season. And now he's your top performer on opening night this season in a rebuilding situation. So it goes to show the struggles that this team is going through right now. So hopefully they get guys back and they can at least look watchable. And I think that's a big point here. It's like fans know they're not dumb. Like, this is going to be a work in progress. This Raptors team, they're not making the playoffs. They're not going to be in contention, but you at least want it to be watchable. But when your team looks the worst on opening, I know the Wizards haven't played yet at the time of this recording, but if the Wizards put up more of a fight against the Celtics, Matt, the Raptors officially look the worst after the first game of the season. That's not good. You at least want a watchable product.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Washington and just the preseason looked like a garbage fire. So, I mean, at least they aren't in TD Garden, so I guess that's a positive. But yeah, the Wizards, I don't think you can get much worse than that. But yeah, I think for the Raptors, essentially big picture of the season, you just want at least your main three guys and Barnes, IQ, and Barrett to get considerable time together because when they did play together, RJ was playing his career best basketball. Unfortunately, he had to miss time due to personal issues. But Emmanuel quickly, you know how good he can be. He was looking good on opening night until his injuries. So you just want your guys to be at least somewhat healthy, and hopefully they can just build that chemistry together because admittedly, when I caught some games when all the trades went down, they were pretty exciting to watch. I'd like to see RJ. He played with a lot more confidence and was a lot more assertive and looking for his shots. So that's kind of just the big picture for me. I know fans, rebuilds aren't always pretty, but at least you got three exciting young players, and just it's all about if they can get on the court at the same time. So that's kind of just the bigger outlook that I'm approaching for this Raptors season for sure.
No, and that's a really good point. And that's what we want to see. We want to see those core guys play together quickly. Barrett, Barnes, I think they played something like only 22 games together. Obviously, Barnes going down on March 1st. And then it's even smaller when you add Dick to the barbecue trio. It's like 4 games that they played with each other. So, yeah, we know this can be a promising team. They can show you flashes of a lot of good stuff, but man, the injury bug has just been brutal. And it's like to start the season dealing with the injury bug, it's a tough ask, especially for a team like the Raptors that are going through a developmental curve. So, yeah, we'll see what this team is made up of, because I know you don't want to talk about the draft and tank and all those buzzwords when it's 1 game, 2 games into the season. But Matt, just looking ahead here, the Raptors are without key pieces. It's a tough schedule ahead. Their first 20 of 20 of their first 25 matchups against playoff teams that included Cleveland last night. This thing can get very ugly fast. So do you think the Raptors can bounce back here, just looking at the shorter term of the schedule? You got Philadelphia, you catch the break, no Embiid, George, you're going to be at home. And then you got Minnesota. But then, yeah, you got Denver on Monday, the Hornets. They look to be a much improved team. I know it's just 1 game, but man, does LaMelo look like he's on a mission this season. And then you got the Lakers, Kings, and then, yeah, it just keeps getting more and more difficult with Western Conference opponents. So do you think the Raptors can bounce back, get a dub against the Sixers? And what do you kind of see here? Let's call it over the next 10. Do you think by the end of it, do you think the Raptors are going to be completely battered and we're already going to have conversations about tanking in the draft? Or do you think they can show you some things here? And I know health is going to be a big proponent of it, but let's assume, Quickly and Barrett are back in the mix. Hopefully, I would say, if not Saturday, Monday.
Looking at these games, man, it is tough. Essentially, your one layup is the Hornets, and then that beginning of November is tough. The Lakers, Kings, Nuggets, Kings, Clippers. They're all right. You got the Lakers again, then the Bucks. So it's pretty tough. I hate being negative, but at this point in time, I can't really solidify any wins here for the Raptors. I mean, the Hornets, they kind of just have that image of being a bad team, but they came back against the Houston Rockets on the road thanks to LaMelo, so that was a pretty impressive win. So it's tough, man. It's hard to gauge. I would like to say they pick up some surprising wins here and there, but it's tough. I think if you head into November 1-4, it can start to snowball for sure. So I think help providing, I think heading into November, you would like RJ and IQ to be back. But man, if you go this extended stretch without those two, it can really get dicey for sure.
Yeah, I want to say they have to beat Philadelphia. I know Philadelphia, that their depth concerns me because just looking at that game against Milwaukee, I know they lost, but Martin, Yabusele, and Lowry, they all finished in double figures. So I could already see that being a theme for tomorrow with the Sixers bench going off and Maxey's and the Torres for going off against the Raptors. But if the Raptors go 0-2, I don't see him beating Minnesota. I don't see him being the Nuggets. Now you're talking about 0-4, and then you go into that Hornets game. They might be who knows what the record's going to be at that time. I think they're going to be a much improved team, as I just mentioned. So, yeah, it really is tough. And then the more these losses pile up, and then guys are not readily available, and, yeah, all of a sudden you enter November with maybe just one win, it's not looking. I know I'm trying to be optimistic too, man, but it really is tough. Looking at the schedule, and we knew that realities of this team, that if they were going to be healthy, it was already going to be tough. And then all of a sudden, you have guys out, and it just makes things awfully difficult. I will say this: if RJ and Quickly come back, and you get Olynyk back, I don't think he's going to be out for too long. Walter, Darko had said, is probably like a week behind RJ. So let's just say you get RJ, Quickly, and Olynyk back for next week. I think they'll put up a fight against some of these teams. But like you said, like if Quickly and RJ continue to miss time, really, like it's gonna be tough, because now you're asking Scottie Barnes to play like absolutely out of his mind with a very shorthanded bench. So yeah, I said this previously, but it is true. We're going to literally find out the theme of this Raptor season after the first 2 weeks, whether this is a team can show you signs of life, flirt with the plan, or if this thing is just going to unravel what we're talking about. Okay, let's go Raptors. Can they get one of the worst records and get a top 5 pick for this year, next year's draft?
Yeah, definitely. Just looking at the totality of November, you play the Pistons twice. And the Heat, they looked pretty bad in their opening game against the Magic. And then you got the Pelicans, who lost to DeJounte Murray, so they're a little banged up. But those are kind of the 3 or 4 games I'm looking at. And admittedly, yeah, if you're healthy, you can probably pick up some surprising or at least competitive games for sure. So, I mean, at the worst case, you lose games, you get a better pick, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, and that's the silver lining. We know it's a loaded 2025 NBA draft. The good thing is nobody owns the Raptors pick. They have their picks, and we know that this team needs talent. So, depending on how things play out, it could be an easier decision for this Raptors team to look ahead here and not necessarily put their best foot forward and try to just look big picture. And I mean, I had Ron on the show the other day, and he said it. He's like, the last team that comes to mind was the process Sixers, of a team that was pretty open about tanking and losing games. And we know Darko keeps preaching patience, rebuild. It's going to take time. Jakob Poeltl flat out said the quiet part out loud at Raptors Media Day. So that's the thing. We know what's at the forefront here, but I think just what fans want to see is, competitive efforts, this team back, the core pieces playing with each other, and see what you have if you are going to add another A-list talent in 2025. So, what's your prediction though, Matt? What do you think they get it done against Philadelphia?
That is tough. Admittedly, probably, I think it boils down to if they're able to contain Maxey, which you say they haven't had a good history of doing so. But with Embiid and Paul George out, I think it's definitely feasible. kind of interested again in the Scottie Barnes bounce back game. I think if the Raptors don't have any chance, he's obviously got to set the tone. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see. I'm curious if Scottie gets the assignment right out the gate. That'd be pretty fun to watch. But I'll be optimistic since it's been pretty negative. I'll say they'll get it done.
All right, and we'll do this on the fly here. It'll be cool. Put you on the spot again. All right, Raptors record after 10 games, including the one they just played, which they lost. So what is the Raptors record after 9 more games? I'll give you a second to look at the schedule here. But yeah, so they just lost. They got Philadelphia, Timberwolves, Nuggets, Hornets, Lakers, Kings, Nuggets, Kings, Clippers. The over-under is probably like one, like 1.5. Man, that's tough.
Since I gave the Philly game, I'll do that. I'll give them the Hornets game. And
can they get one of those? Nuggets going to be tough. I was going to say, can they get maybe one of those LA teams?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking either maybe you steal one against the Kings or the Clippers. That's what I was thinking. But I mean, you guys played the Lakers close last season, so anything's possible there. But I think my final answer is 3-7.
3-7. I think that really is fair. I'll give them the Sixers game too. If they don't, I think it will snowball. But yeah, I'll give them the Sixers game. I'll give them the. I'll say they beat the Hornets. I think it's tough to beat teams twice in kind of those like sets where you see them pretty close to each other. But the Nuggets are a cut above, so I don't think they'll get any against the Nuggets. But I can kind of see them split the Kings and then get the Clippers matchup there on November 9th. So I'll actually be cautiously optimistic. Yours is probably right at 3-7, but I'll go 4-6, and I don't feel good saying that, but I'm assuming quickly and RJ come back and you know they are able to click because they did look good in that beginning part of the season when pieces came in. So I would say if you're 4-6, even 3-7, that would be not too bad considering who you're going up against. I think worst case would be, like this, you go 0-4 and you start dropping games and you start looking ahead towards the end of the schedule. The thing is with this team, if they somehow can survive, the back end of their schedule is pretty lenient. So they can make things interesting for a play-in spot if they survive this these first couple of months, especially these first 2 months.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's interesting in the East. I think you can still be pretty decently bad and get into a play-in spot.
Yeah.
So I think anything's possible. So seeing how this November schedule shakes out, it makes sense for it to line up towards the back end. So, yeah, I mean, just got to get through this gauntlet. Hopefully, if we're hoping for best case scenario, 4-6, that's pretty tough. But I think you just got to dug it out just a little bit. Hopefully it's sooner rather than later. But again, losing's not the worst thing in the world. Don't know if you can tank worse than the Washington Wizards this year, but who knows? Lottery balls didn't fall your way last lottery, but who knows? Maybe Cooper Flag can come to Toronto.
Overreaction pods. You got to love it. Yeah, listen, we're Raptors fans already on board. If they lose against the Sixers, I think I might just say fully tank for Flag. That's going to be the theme of the season. But thank you so much, Matt, for joining me. I'll definitely have Valento back on the pod, guys, after the 10-game mark. We'll see how our predictions ended up looking. And I think it'll be fun to monitor how this team does over the next 10. But Matt, thank you so much for joining. Where can people follow you and your work? Obviously, you could follow Matt with the Raptors Nation stuff. But beyond that, where else can people follow your work and what you do?
Yeah, first off, thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it. It's fun to be back here. If you want to follow me on Twitter, my @ is just Matthew Valento, all one word, nothing special about it. And then on Instagram, Matthew.Valento. And feel free to read my work at Lakers Nation and Raptors Nation. Been fun balancing the two and covering two different teams. So that's been fun so far. And looking forward to see how our predictions look after 10 games for sure.
Yeah, guys, definitely go check out Raptors Nation and LakersNation.com. Up-to-date articles published by the minute and keeps you really in the loop for the seasons up ahead. So definitely check out those sites. Go follow Matt, and you can follow me on X at Luca Rosano 3. And of course, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel for more pods and post-game videos. And yeah, we will be back at it again tomorrow. I will have the post-game video after the Raptors Sixers game. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Luca signing off. I will catch you all again in the next one.